My husband was downstairs. His friend was in our bedroom. And when it was over, he did something to make sure no one would ever know, not even me. My name is Sophie. I'm 42. And I don't know when the quiet became something I had to explain. Our house has always been calm. That was the word people used when they came over. Calm, peaceful, still, white walls, matching towels, no clutter. The kids moved out 2 years ago. We told people we missed them, but mostly we adjusted. The house didn't echo. It absorbed the silence like it was meant to. Aaron, my husband of 16 years, thrives in stillness. He's precise, predictable. The kind of man who folds his clothes the same way every time, who likes his coffee black and exactly 2 degrees too hot, who leaves his shoes by the same mat even if he's running late. He's good, dependable, kind. Sometimes I try to remember the last time he looked at me with surprise. Not shock or suspicion. Just the simple flicker of seeing something new. And I come up empty. But nothing's wrong. That's what I keep telling myself. That's what I say when people ask how we are. Because how can you explain that being content doesn't always mean being alive? It was Aaron's idea to let Miles stay with us. His place was being renovated. Some water damage in the ceilings, mold creeping through the drywall. He needed a few days, maybe a week. Nothing major. Just until the contractors finished. Just like college, Aaron said, laughing. Except without the girls and the whiskey. I smiled. Because that's what you do. Miles and Aaron met in the service. Different units, but same base. They became brothers in a way Aaron rarely is with anyone else. Over the years, Miles showed up often enough to feel like family, but never long enough to become a fixture. He was Aaron's tether to a different time, wilder, louder, messier. Every time Miles left, it felt like the house exhaled. I didn't mind him. He was always respectful. Made me laugh in that sharp sideways way that made you feel like you were in on something. He'd call me soft when Aaron wasn't listening. Not flirty. Not inappropriate. Just casual. Familiar. But lately, I don't know. He changed. The last few times I saw him, he was quieter. Less sparkle. Like someone had closed the windows inside him. Still handsome, that part hadn't faded. If anything, the quiet made it worse. Made you want to look longer, just to figure out what he wasn't saying. So when he arrived that Thursday night, duffel in hand, smelling like wind and cedar, I noticed the difference instantly. Not in his voice, that was still warm, but in the way he stood in the doorway like the house didn't belong to him or to anyone. He hugged Aaron first, slapped his back, made a joke I didn't catch. When he turned to me, he didn't say my name. Just looked at me for a second longer than usual. Then smiled. Brief, controlled. "Thanks for the bed," he said. "Of course. Nice to see you again." I nodded. "It's been a while." He didn't say how long. I didn't ask. The first day was easy. He unpacked, showered, watched the game with Aaron while I caught up on emails in the office. They laughed loud, made popcorn, talked over each other the way men do when they've told the same stories for decades. I listened with one ear, smiled when appropriate. I was happy they had each other. That Aaron looked alive again. Nothing was wrong. The second day, I found Miles in the kitchen before sunrise. I had come down for tea. My body sometimes wakes too early, aching in places that feel unearned. I don't sleep through the night anymore, not since the kids moved out. Something about the absence of noise keeps my ears on high alert. He was sitting at the table, reading something on his phone. A glass of water in front of him. Shirtless, but wrapped in a blanket. Not messy, just unfinished. "Morning," I said, clearing my throat. He looked up. Blinked slowly. then smiled, soft. Didn't mean to startle you. You didn't. Couldn't sleep. I nodded. Tea? He didn't answer right away. Then, sure. We didn't speak much. Just the clink of cups. The kettle. The sigh of the heater turning on. When I handed him the mug, our fingers didn't touch. But I felt the air shift anyway. Saturday passed quietly. Aaron worked in the yard. Miles helped. I watched from the window for a while, their silhouettes moving against the winter-dull grass. I wondered what they talked about when I wasn't around. If I existed in their conversations. That evening I made dinner. Roasted chicken. Garlic potatoes. Miles offered to help. I told him no. He stood near the sink, drying his hands. You always this precise? He asked, watching me peel. I smiled without looking. Old habits. I like that about you. I glanced up. He didn't smile, just looked, like he was waiting for something. Then Aaron called from the garage, and the moment folded back into itself. By Monday, the house felt heavier. Miles didn't say when he was leaving. I didn't ask. It felt too pointed, too eager. Aaron didn't seem in a rush. He liked having someone to talk to relive things with. That night, they stayed up late. Football again. Some loud documentary I couldn't stand. I excused myself around 10. Said I was tired. Aaron waved from the couch. I went upstairs alone. Brushed my teeth. Pulled my hair back. Scrolled through the same 3 apps out of habit. I walked toward the bedroom, lights dim, hallway quiet. I opened the door, expecting stillness. And there he was. Miles. The voices from the TV echoed faintly up the stairs. Laughter. Commentary. The low, constant murmur of a game I didn't understand and didn't care to. Aaron was downstairs. That much I knew. I didn't go upstairs with a plan. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted space. To breathe. To feel separate. To remember what it was like to be alone inside a room I used to claim as mine. I pushed open the bedroom door without thinking. And stopped. He was there. Miles. Standing near the window. He didn't turn right away. His silhouette was still, backlit by the hallway light. One hand resting lightly on the frame, as if holding himself there. His shoulders weren't tense. Nothing about him said surprise. He didn't look like a man caught. Just a man waiting. I stayed in the doorway. I didn't know you were in here, I said, soft. He turned his head. Not his body, just his head. His voice was low. Was just getting some air. I nodded. He didn't move. I didn't want to bother anyone, he added. You're not. Silence. The kind that stretches, not breaks. I should have walked out. Said goodnight. Closed the door and gone to fold laundry I didn't have. But I didn't. I stepped inside instead. Slowly. The door didn't close behind me. It just swung half shut, soft against the wall. He was watching me now. Not directly. But I felt it. The kind of watching that doesn't look away when you meet it. The kind that doesn't blink. I walked to the edge of the bed. Touched the bedspread like I was smoothing something out. You couldn't sleep? I asked, almost too casually. He shrugged. Didn't want to sit with the game. I smiled faintly. Neither did I. More silence. He didn't fill it. Neither did I. The room felt dimmer than usual. The hallway light behind me, the window light in front of him. Between us, shadow. But not distance. Then he said something. I don't remember the exact words. Something about the quiet. About how this house felt like it belonged to a different decade. He said it like a compliment. I laughed softly. You mean it's boring? No, he said. I mean it's deliberate. That word. Deliberate. Like he had chosen it carefully. I looked at him then. Really looked. His face was calm, but there was something tight at the corner of his mouth. His hands were still. His eyes weren't. I didn't know what to say, but my body did. I sat down on the edge of the bed, just for a second, just to make the tension stop ringing. And that's when the lights flickered. Once. Not much. Just enough to make me pause. The air seemed to pull in around us. I looked up. He hadn't moved, and in the silence, something cracked open between us. Not a sound. Not a shift. Just the sense that something was about to change, and once it did, we'd never be able to unknow it. He stepped forward. Not much. Just enough. I didn't back away. He said something, I think, but I can't remember. It's like someone cut that part out. Scissors to the reel. What I do remember. The feel of the edge of the bed under my palm. The soft drag of fabric against skin, not mine, not his, just something between us. My breath, suddenly shallow. Tight. A hand, maybe on my shoulder. Or not. And then, blank. Not sleep. Not panic. Just absence. Like I stepped out of myself for a moment and forgot how to return. When I opened my eyes, everything was still. The room was the same. The light steady now. The air no longer heavy, just there. The door was half open. The hallway light casting a sliver of gold onto the rug. And he was standing at the threshold, watching me. I wasn't asleep. It's important that I say that clearly, even though I felt like I'd woken from something. My body was still, my limbs loose and foreign, like they had been arranged around me, like I'd been placed back into myself. And now I was lying there in the dim, watching the room remember what it was supposed to be. I didn't move. I wasn't sure I could. My breathing was shallow, my mouth dry. The bedspread under my fingertips felt unfamiliar, cooler than it should have been. I didn't know how long I'd been there. A few minutes, maybe more. Time wasn't linear anymore. It had unraveled into soft, curling shapes I couldn't trace. The light from the hallway had shifted slightly. I hadn't left it on. The bedroom door was half open, and Miles was standing in it, framed like a picture. One you don't remember hanging. He didn't look surprised to see me. He wasn't rushing. Wasn't nervous. He looked composed. Relaxed almost. Like nothing out of place had occurred. His hand was resting lightly against the frame. His posture easy. But his eyes held something. Not cruelty. Not regret. Something closer to calculation. When he spoke, his voice was level. You don't need to think too hard about it. That's what he said. The first thing. Like we were already in the middle of a conversation. He didn't blink. Whatever it was, he said, and I remember this exactly because I felt it lodge somewhere in my ribs. It's better this way. He didn't step closer. Didn't gesture. He just stood there, as though that distance, that angle, was deliberate. As though even this part had already been decided. My lips parted, but nothing came out. Not confusion. Not a question. Just the faint echo of breath too slow to catch up with meaning. I didn't know what had happened. Not exactly. And that was the worst part. Because something had. I felt it in the hollow quiet between my ears. In the slight ache low in my spine. In the raw, low pulse under my skin that didn't feel like mine. But there were no details. No shape. No certainty. Only absence. The kind of absence you don't know how to explain because it doesn't leave bruises, only doubts. He watched me a second longer. Then he nodded. Almost imperceptibly. As if he'd closed a door I didn't know had been open. And he walked away. Down the hall. Back to the world where things still made sense. I stayed there for several minutes. Maybe more. Eventually, I sat up. My hands were trembling, but not in the cinematic way. Not big dramatic shakes. It was smaller. Finer. like the kind of tremble that only shows itself when you try to lift a glass or button a shirt. I didn't know what to do next. I was still dressed. My clothes didn't look touched. Nothing was out of place. But I was. I stood slowly, half expecting to feel pain, dizziness, something. But there was nothing. Only that odd, hollow clarity. Like waking from anesthesia and being told everything went fine, but not being sure you ever agreed to the surgery. I went to the mirror. Looked at myself. At first, nothing. Just the usual tired reflection. Eyes too shadowed. Lips dry. Hair flat on one side from leaning against the headboard. But then something flickered in the reflection. Not in me. In what was missing. I couldn't name it. Not in that moment. But I knew I wasn't looking at the same version of myself who had walked into that room. And I didn't know how to get her back. I went downstairs. My legs didn't feel like mine until the second step from the bottom. I heard them before I saw them. Miles and Aaron. Laughing. Casual. Easy. The same way they always had. The living room smelled like beer and microwave popcorn. The television glowed soft and blue. Aaron was leaning back into the couch cushions, relaxed, one socked foot on the coffee table. Miles sat to the side, one arm draped over the edge of the couch, holding a half-empty bottle of something. I froze in the doorway. Neither of them looked alarmed, or secretive, or even alert. Just there. Aaron looked up first. "Hey," he said, smiling. "You back?" I nodded. Miles turned his head toward me, slow, unhurried. His expression was smooth, neutral. "Everything okay?" Aaron asked. I paused, then nodded again. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep. Should have stayed down here," he said. "This game is brutal." "You'd love it." I smiled, or something like it. Miles took a sip from his bottle. His eyes flicked to mine. Only for a second. But in that second, something moved between us and then was gone. I sat in the chair opposite them. Legs crossed. Back straight. I didn't speak much. Neither did he. Aaron carried the conversation as usual. Commentary. Replays. A story from work. No one mentioned the bedroom. No one asked why I'd been gone so long. No one hinted at what had passed through that room like a shadow without a source. When the game ended, Aaron yawned. Stretched. Said he was heading up. Miles offered to lock up. They didn't even glance at each other, just fell into their rhythms like it was a Tuesday in March and nothing in the world had shifted. I stood. Wished them both good night. Aaron kissed my cheek. I barely felt it. That night in bed, he curled toward me. His hand found my waist in that familiar, loose way it always had. There was comfort in it. Maybe even love. But there was also distance. Because as he pulled the blanket up around us, I lay there staring at the ceiling, remembering the way Miles had looked at me. Not like a man who had done something, but like a man who had made a choice. And made peace with it before I ever stepped into the room. The next morning, Aaron kissed me on the forehead, told me he'd be back around lunch. Said Miles was going to head out early. Something about meeting his contractor. I nodded. Told him to drive safe. Once the door closed, I stood in the hallway and listened to the silence return. A deep, clean silence. But not the kind I used to find comfort in. This one felt too empty. Like it had swallowed something whole and left no trace. He left early. That much was true. I didn't hear him leave, but when I walked downstairs, his duffel bag was gone. The blanket he'd been using on the couch was folded too neatly. The coffee mug in the sink was rinsed. Not washed, just rinsed, as if someone wanted the appearance of care without the intimacy of soap. Aaron was still upstairs. I could hear the shower running. The house felt unnaturally light. Like someone had removed an object of weight, but the room hadn't adjusted yet. The air didn't settle. It just hung like a held breath. I told myself I'd make tea, start laundry, act as though nothing had happened. But when I stepped into the bedroom, I knew. Not loudly. Not obviously. Not with upturned sheets or rearranged drawers. But in the smallest way. I always kept my jewelry on the tray by the mirror, the same one since my wedding day. My necklace sat there every night. A simple charm. Small. Gold. Flat on one side from where it pressed into my skin when I slept. I reached for it out of instinct. And paused. It wasn't there. I checked the tray. The dish beside it. The drawer. The floor. Nothing. I opened the closet. Nothing. I didn't panic. Not yet. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the space where it should have been, as if looking hard enough might summon it, or the memory of when I last saw it. But no memory came, only the stillness. And then, slowly, like a tide retreating, the panic began to rise. I searched the entire room. Rug. Behind the dresser. Under the bed. Nothing. Then I saw it. A scratch. Small. Thin. Just above the inside door handle. Easy to miss. It wasn't there before. I know that with a kind of certainty I can't explain. Like when you know someone has moved your keys, not because you saw it happen, but because your body remembers where they were meant to be. I reached out and touched it. It was shallow. Clean. Like someone had pressed metal into wood and dragged just slightly. It didn't bleed into the paint. It didn't crack the surface. But it was there. My fingers stayed against it longer than they should have. And suddenly I wasn't touching a door. I was touching the gap between what I knew and what I couldn't prove. Later, when Aaron came downstairs, I was in the kitchen, buttering toast I wouldn't eat. He was in a good mood. Said Miles had texted thanks. That he'd found a hotel with hot water and a working ceiling fan. That it was good to catch up. I smiled. The right amount. Aaron kissed the top of my head before leaving for the store. And, just like that, the moment passed. But it hadn't passed through me. It had taken something. The rest of the day was fog. I did what I always do. Laundry. Groceries. Emails. Smiled at neighbors. But I couldn't stop thinking about the necklace. And the scratch. And the quiet. Not the absence of Miles. Not even the ambiguity of what happened. What haunted me was how precisely it had been cleaned away. Like he hadn't just stepped out of my bedroom, he'd stepped through it. Carefully. Deliberately. Removing every fingerprint as he went. That night, I sat at my vanity, staring at my collarbone. The skin was pale. Unmarked. The place where the necklace had rested for years was bare. It wasn't just jewelry. It was proof. Of time. Of intimacy. Of consistency. And now it was gone. A charm I hadn't removed. A scratch I hadn't made. A memory I couldn't complete. I reached for the mirror and whispered, without meaning to. I didn't leave the room, but something else did. Aaron noticed, days later. He asked where my necklace was. I told him I'd misplaced it. He kissed my temple and said I'd find it. I smiled and changed the subject because I knew what he couldn't. It wasn't lost. It had been taken. And not just the object, but the moment, the knowing, the part of me that once trusted the silence of a room. Weeks passed. Life resumed. But something in me didn't. I still made the bed. Still folded his shirts. Still smiled when I was supposed to. But there was a sliver inside me now. Something lodged, like a word I almost said. Some nights, I'd sit in the dark with my hand against my chest, tracing the outline of what wasn't there. And in the quiet, I'd hear him. Not his voice. Not his footsteps. But the sentence he left me with, don't think too hard about it. It's better this way. And every time I would think, better for who? But I never said it aloud, because that would make it real. And he had made sure I could never prove it. Not even to myself.